This is a real like aha moment. Everything has opened up for me just being me.
How did you know that it wasn't what you were supposed to be doing?
I was just not alive.
What does an actor go through?
I was told a lot that you can't make a career out of this. Comparing myself to myself is actually really painful. And I never thought I would.
Do you feel like you spread yourself too thin?
Yes. That's where I'm like, oh God.
What role does reputation have in that industry?
That is hard. That's really hard. I let the pressure of how competitive the industry can be get to me.
What amount of volume does it take for you to like land one gig? In this episode, I sit down with Kelly Warren, an amazing actor, social media manager, and yoga instructor. We all can relate in some ways of getting photos or videos taken of ourselves from our friends, looking back at them and being like, oh, I don't like how I sound. I don't like how I look. Imagine the guts that it takes to be on camera for a full-time job. All the eyes and all the cameras and all the lights on you at once. I love her enthusiasm on sharing some of the most difficult parts of what she does and how awesome she is to get through all of these things. Now let's get into the episode. Welcome back to the Silo Podcast. I'm Austin, your host, and I'm here with
Kelly Warren.
Oh man, Kelly, do you ever get camera shy? You ever get so frazzled by having 3 cameras on you at all times with a light dangling in front of you and so many microphones just so close to you?
Absolutely.
I would have never have guessed.
Yeah. I've been acting since I was like in middle school, maybe high school, and I still get stage fright so bad. I'm feeling the pressure with all these cameras right now.
You sweating right now as much as I am?
Yeah, it was freezing in here when I first came in, and now it is very hot.
Tell me more about like acting, because I think that's something that we haven't, as a community, like really touched on or highlighted. So I think you're a really interesting case of everything that happens. And we actually work together, for those who don't know.
Yes.
So we're in like the social media landscape, but you also have a side gig as an actor.
Yeah. And I never thought I would. I was told a lot that you can't make a career out of this. Like it's a once in a lifetime event if you get famous. And I'm like, well, actually, I found that you don't have to be famous to make a lifestyle and a career out of acting. You can still support yourself acting.
Someone feels validated immediately out of this episode.
I'm feeling so validated, but I can tell you, like, leading up to this point, it hasn't been that way. And depending on the day, like, I'll feel rejection because that's a big part of this career. But I started theater, middle school, high school, just like musical stuff. Knew I loved it. And then, college came around. I minored in theater and I was like, I'm never going to make money off this. So I just stuck with marketing. And I worked in corporate for like 6-7 years without doing any theater. And I just felt like this huge like gap, like something was missing. But in my mind, I was like, no, I just need to make my paycheck and this is what life is. Just like pay my bills. And then I found York, Pennsylvania.
Whoa, that place?
Whoa.
Don't know about that place.
And well, because I'm from Maryland, backtrack. So yeah, I found this little theater. It was York Little Theater at the time. They changed it to the Belmont. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. And I auditioned for a show and I just felt alive again. And I was like, okay, so when you're in alignment with like what you're supposed to be in alignment with, like there's a light, like there is a frequency change in like you feel in your body and your soul and your life. And so I was like, okay, I'm on the right track again. It was like I was on the wrong path. And then suddenly I was back on.
Tell me, like, explain though what it felt like to not be like fulfilling what your creative needs were like at like the agency or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Like, sure, you might be making the paychecks, but like, what is the underlying, like, no, I needed to do theater again?
It was like, I was just not alive. Like I was feeling anxiety all the time. Like I have anxiety. But it was just draining. Like waking up at 6 a.m. and working at a computer for a job that I didn't like. It was like customer service, mostly in sales. And then getting home at like 6 p.m., feeling so exhausted that the only thing I have energy for is like turn the TV on and then go to sleep and do the whole thing over again.
Right.
And so then you have to cram in everything that you really want to do in the weekends. So it's like, okay, family, friends, and then the weekend's gone. And I understand like rest is very important. So after a long day of work, yeah, I just want to turn on Netflix some days still. But then it was like there was no time or space to actually
be Kelly.
Yeah, I didn't feel like
you
me.
didn't identify with your job.
Yeah.
Like you were not what your occupation is. I think a lot of people agree that's just like not the way of life you want to live.
There's a quote out there, and I'm going to say it, but I can't remember who said it. Maybe it was Albert Einstein. But
It's always Albert Einstein.
I think he said it. It's like a fish trying to climb a tree. And like you start questioning yourself. I'm like, why am I not good at this? Why do I hate this? And I start feeling imposter syndrome there too. Like I just knew I wasn't supposed to be doing it, but I felt judged for not being good at it, customer service and sales.
Yeah.
And it was because I was a fish trying to climb a tree.
You're like second guessing yourself, like, well, what's going on here? Am I broken?
Yes.
I feel like I internalize it. I'm like, what's wrong with me that what I'm doing for society is actually not benefiting back to me?
Yeah. And I think because growing up, it's like you have this model. I mean, I'm not saying everyone has this model from their parents, but you have this model of like you work and you take care of your family and you pay your bills. And that's what I saw. And I was like, okay, that's what life is. All right. And I'll just like, I tried to find the little things that I liked about it. Like I liked some of the people, I made friends there, but really it was just a struggle doing something that you're not meant to be doing. It just feels like you're forcing life.
How did you know that it wasn't what you were supposed to be doing?
Just this like gut instinct that I was in the wrong place. And this is kind of magical. So I can tell you something here.
I want to hear some magic.
I love magic. So I was there, knew I had to leave. And I had come across Living Word Community Church in my first marriage. And because he lived in New York. And he was like, let's try this church out. I'm like, okay. And I hadn't been going to church in a long time. I was raised Catholic. And I was just like, didn't really have a relationship. I was just like, okay, did all the sacraments, done. And but I went to Living Word and I was like, this is cool. This is like awesome music and a TED Talk. What? I've never been to that kind of service before. So I was just like in love with it. And I kept going back and I was like, wow, wouldn't it be cool to work here? And I just started thinking about it all the time. Like, and mostly part-time jobs were available, not full-time, but I knew I needed full-time. I knew I needed the benefits. So I was like, well, guess that'll never happen, but wouldn't that be awesome? So I was interviewing at other marketing companies. I'd end up doing the same thing, you know?
Yeah.
And I wasn't getting the jobs there. And I was like, man, I'm like, what's going on? And suddenly a full-time position opened at Living Word Community Church.
Whoa.
And it was like, because I was just looking for ease. It was just a simple admin job. And I was like, I'm done with the grind. I want more flexibility. It was half the pay that I was making. And I was like, I don't care. I was at that point in my life, I was so done. And I was like, this was God. Like, in my opinion, I came across the Facebook post about the job opening. I was like, done. And I got the job.
Heck yeah.
And that moves me into my whole like next phase of life where I actually was put in a position in a job that was so flexible that I could start exploring more of the acting stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What was that like then to be at Belmont or whatever it was at that time, but turned into Belmont?
Yeah.
To be like in that circle? Like, how'd you get back into it?
I just seen an audition, a casting call, and I was like, let's go. And then when I auditioned, I just felt so lit up. And the people there, like, I just made new friends. It was community again. I felt very isolated before that. And I kind of did that to myself a little bit and fell into that. And yeah, suddenly I'm making new friends. I'm feeling social again. I'm connecting to people that have the same interests. And then I start hearing about these people doing film. And I was like, ooh, film. Like, that was never in my mind of like, you know, I can make money doing off this.
Yeah, because like that theater is just like audience. Like,
yeah, so that
person.
theater, that was live, totally different vibe doing live theater. It's actually terrifying because you can't, Like you can't, you have to be good at improv if something goes wrong. And the community theater wasn't paid. I was like, this is fulfilling me right now. But then, yeah, there's a lot of actors that I was working with, and I started getting plugged into that community where they're like, yeah, you can get paid. Like, we do short films, we do commercials. And at first that felt so far out of my reach. But I was at the gym one day, Planet Fitness. And
Planet Fitness.
To be exact. And I'm in the Crucible at this time. This was at Susquehanna Stage in Marietta. And I'm on the treadmill. I look up at the TV, and the man that plays my husband in the Crucible is on the TV. And I'm like, what is he doing there? What? He's doing a cabinet commercial. And I'm like, okay, if he can do this, you know what? I can do this. So I texted him. I was like, how'd you get that commercial? And he said, backstage.com. So that's where I started. I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to put my picture up there. I'm going to start sending auditions. Like, it was actually a good time. COVID was not a good time, but it was a good time for me because suddenly auditions were all virtual. So I didn't have to go out to New York or Philly or, you know, wherever to audition for something and have a chance at something.
Solid.
Yeah. And that's how I got my first commercial, was in March of 2020.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's crazy, actually.
It's weird.
Is it? So I always found, like, backstage.com, do they have like the whole, like, you have to put all of like your measurements down? Like, how is that weird for like a first timer?
It was
to like be like, oh, I have to like put my like waist, like every part of me.
For backstage,
It's a little bit less, maybe.
It gives you an option, but it doesn't make you feel like you have to do it. There's different casting sites that I'm on now, like Casting Networks, at Backstage. And like if you get certain agents, they'll probably ask you for some of the measurements. So it is weird because I don't even know how to properly measure myself, to be honest.
Sure.
I'm like, I'm a small.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's fine. That works for people. But yeah, Backstage wasn't asking for a whole lot.
Yeah.
It was like, here, put some of your credits in here.
Yeah.
And you know what? I didn't have any film credits to put in there. So I was like, okay, well, I have some theater stuff I can put in. And I started feeling, imposter syndrome as I'm, getting on this website, being like, what? I have nothing to even post besides this like one headshot I have.
Yeah. It's like asking you for all your credentials and all this stuff. And you're like, I'm just new.
I have nothing. I'm new. But it's such a great platform for someone who's new because really and I've talked to other actors about this too, like just record yourself, set up your phone. If you have a ring light, that's really good. So you have a stand for your phone and just get a blank wall and do a few monologues, do a few scenes from your favorite movie. Like just record yourself doing some of that. If you don't have a reel, you don't have clips from past work, just do that. And that can get you seen.
That's good.
Yeah. It's so much more accessible than I realized. And if I had known how accessible it was, I definitely would have started earlier. And that might be my own critical thinking getting in my way because there were a few people that were like, no, you can do this. And like there was a voice that was like, no, you can't.
Where did that come from?
Oh, I don't know. Probably childhood trauma. I don't know. Like the fear of being seen, even though I desperately craved being seen and I could feel that fulfillment when I was on stage.
Gotcha.
But I would also have that huge, I'm going to throw up fear before I walked out.
Yeah. I feel like, it has to be like most people.
Yeah.
Unless
I've
you
heard that.
Is it like a weird sociopathic thing to maybe not have fear before you're out? You're just like, I am confidence.
I don't know. Sometimes some people have said when you feel that way, if you're just kind of like, yeah, I'm just going to do it, then that actually can mess up your performance because then you're almost too off your guard.
You're not thinking about everything that you have to do. You're just I'm going to
It takes a little adrenaline. You need that little spark to get your performance where it should be. And even I've heard Meryl Streep has awful stage fright still. And she's been acting forever.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I going back to the specification card thing, maybe that's more like modeling because you need certain things to be in certain clothes. And maybe it's less of that for being on camera. You tell me.
There's an intersection between modeling and acting for sure that I didn't realize because people be like, oh, you could model. And I'm like, no, I can't. Because I was acting and I'm like, I don't look like these fashion models. And then I realized there's a lot of lifestyle modeling where you're you.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, that's what you're more into. I feel
Yeah.
like where it's just like, oh, I'm the mom or whatever. And it's
Yep.
like they don't want freaking model with like lip injections
No.
and stuff like that in a home like selling cabinets or something. Like that's not the demographic they're even trying to touch on.
Exactly. So then I'm like, wait, modeling's accessible for me too. When I saw that, because it's a lot of like video modeling as well, lifestyle. Like I've done so many, like playing the mom where I'm opening a cabinet or I'm just looking at a rug or I'm just smiling at my fake kid. I have so many fake kids. They're not fake, they're real humans, but they're not my children. Or
But
like
you do have all their numbers and check in on them and
so
make sure
many
they're brushing their
husbands.
teeth.
Like how many husbands have I had? So in real life and in fake life, another podcast. But yeah, it's so accessible of me just being me. And and I do feel like I am seeing a lot more casting calls where they want curvier women. They want variety.
Like inclusion.
It's so inclusive now, that I've seen.
Awesome.
So yeah, I do get a little typecasted when it comes to the lifestyle modeling as mom.
Tell me what specifications are they looking for and what do you often then get like actually signed to? I mean, you've talked about like mom, but is it like young mom? Is it like
it's usually
young mom with kid? I don't know what they actually ask
It's
for.
like millennial. I'm the millennial mom. And I have no kids. I'm 34 years old, but I'm like, wait, I am millennial mom age. Oh no. But then I've been told like I could play, and I don't know if people are just like trying to flatter me, but when I get submitted, they're like, well, we're going to submit you for 25 too, or 20, like late 20s.
Yeah. I mean, you can play that age for sure.
Yeah. So that's worked out where I'm like the friend. That's the role. I'm trying to think of the most recent gig I did. They aged me on the set. So it was for a PSA for human trafficking. It's coming out soon. And I'm playing like late 40s. So they had they put crow's feet on me and they grayed me out a little bit. And so you can submit for different ages. Like if they have the right budget.
Yeah, and they have good like hair and makeup team or whatever. They can do whatever they need to.
Yeah, and if you're the actor they want, like they'll make it work.
Interesting. Yeah. Do you feel like you're getting in like the good graces where like people are like, I want Kelly and I don't care what age she is, and they will age you up?
That's what the first time I experienced was that when they aged me, and I was like, oh, okay. It would be a beautiful world if I just got a director, like the same director that would call me for every gig and they'd be like, you know what? I know Kelly. I'm going to pull in Kelly. There's been several occasions where I was contacted by someone I'd worked with before. And it was cool. It's like, oh, okay. So this can be like a routine gig for me. It would be nice to have that like security of, I know I'm going to get a gig from this person every other month.
Yeah. Does that happen often?
There's one, and it's lifestyle modeling that just started kicking up with a place called Webstrant.
Yeah. They're from Lancaster.
Yeah, so they're based in Lidditz. It's like every couple weeks I'll go in and I'll hold a pan.
Beautiful.
And
hand model.
Yeah, hand modeling. Never thought that would be
these things can make me some money.
I know. Never ever thought. Like looking at them, like, okay, but I have gotten into hand modeling and like
come on,
everything has opened up for me just being me.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
What does it look like for those who are just starting out? You go from submitting self-tapes. Do you ever get like, what does it look like to be under like management, or do you just have to diversify onto like different websites?
I've done, and I know that it's dependent on the agent too, but so far.
Or how do you even get an agent?
Yeah, the agency, like you find out which agents you want to be with, what might be local, where you want to work, and you submit like your portfolio, your reel, and then they contact you. And there's certain agents that won't even respond unless you have a reference that's already working with them.
Okay.
But then there's other agents, like smaller ones, that will rep you really well. And so I'm really trying to in the beginning, you kind of want to scatter. You want to be broad and maybe not go exclusive with anyone unless it's like this major agency. So right now I'm non-exclusive, so I can still submit on my own and other agencies can submit me. I've done a lot of my own self-submission. Like I've been my own agent most
Yeah, I mean, I remember you filming your own like self-tapes or whatever you call them for a lot of stuff.
And even when you have an agent, literally they're submitting you, but they'll ask you to do the self-tape too. And then you just give it to them and then they give it to the, so they have the in with the client basically. And they're repping you, but you're still doing the work. And that can be draining too. Like, even though I love acting, like being your own videographer and light technician and editor, because then you have to edit it down. They're like, hey, we want to see this profile. We want to see you walking in the frame. Then you have to have a close up. Then you have to do this. And I'm like, okay. Like some days I just don't feel like it, but then you'll miss it.
Yeah. What amount of volume does it take for you to like land one gig? Like how many self-tapes go out before you might land one?
It depends. And that's why I'm feeling this now, where some months I'll record, and I won't book anything. And then other months I'll put out like, May was really nice. I put out maybe 10 to 20 auditions and I booked, I think 5.
Yeah.
So that is like that's a really
good ratio.
Yeah. Like that doesn't happen. But now I'm feeling it where it's like, okay, I've submitted a ton this month and like haven't booked it. So then I'm like, oh, rejection.
Yeah.
And comparing myself to myself is actually really painful.
Yeah. It's a freelance life of like some months are going to be paying for half your year's rent. Yeah. And then other months it's like, didn't you say like summer was pretty slow just in general or like really dry? Cause is there less productions going on or like you know, the roles that you were a part of like just weren't, I don't know.
I've looked, so I keep like a little ledger. And I compared, like last summer was great. And then I'm like, well, this summer was okay. But I got like better paying roles in the spring. So like you're saying, it kind of evens out. But I know like winter was definitely like December and January and February, you start questioning your life choices. Because you're like, wait.
I feel like most like photographers too. It's like, oh, I'm a natural photographer, natural light photographer. How am I getting outside when it's
it's nasty,
10 degrees?
Yeah.
So it is that like hibernation season. But
feels
luckily,
like hibernation with the holidays.
Yeah, and hopefully, the summer months then make up for that, and you know the minimum is raised a little bit. But
I would say spring is always like really good, and fall, and I'm hoping this fall shows me that it will be. I have a big short film I'm working on in November. It's going to be a whole week of shooting. Yeah. So that's already on the books.
How many does that happen? Like it's not often that you get a full week, but what is a normal production? I mean, that production in general is super wide. Yeah. Right. But like for what you're doing, where it's like a cabinet company, or you're doing like PSAs, or you're in a hangar pretending to be something. And
oh yeah, I remember I did I was training people to fly or be co-pilots on a plane, and I'm like, guys, I actually have no idea.
The only way I remember this is because I edited together your reels.
You're right.
So I tried to remember for today.
That was a fun one. I got to sit in the plane.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay, walk me through a day of a production, because I think I know what it looks like to be a photographer, PA, whatever, on set, but like what does an actor go through? You're on a call, you get a call sheet, right? Probably.
Yes, you get a call sheet. It's really nice when you get it before the night before. And it's really nice when you have the script a couple days in advance and they don't change it the night before. I've experienced that. And I know that, things happen, but it's hard when that happens. Right. It's a lot of pressure. So anyway, ideally, you have a call sheet a couple nights before and your script. And for some of these commercials, like it's a day and that's it. Yeah. Like most of them. And a lot of them, maybe even a half day. Okay. So that's pretty cool. You get on set, depending on the budget, makeup and hair. Makeup and hair is actually really expensive, I've found, to have them on set. But I really get excited when they're there.
Yeah,
that's fun.
in the same way that models show up to shoots and have hair and makeup, and they like, it's kind of nice because they don't have to do anything to prepare or like try to do some technique that they don't know how to do for the set. Is it freeing to you that like, oh, come barefaced or whatever it's called, that they just let you, like, you just come in and do your own thing?
But then that's a whole other like level of imposter syndrome, because I'm like, wait, I don't want people to see me without makeup on. So I'm just like, okay, it's okay. Because they casted me with the makeup on, and then I walk in and I'm like, well, but they know what they're doing. It's fine. Like, I just have to let that go. But it is nice because a lot of these call times are like 8 a.m., 9 a.m. And I'm working within a 2-hour radius. So a lot of the shoots will be closer to Philly or closer to DC. So I'm waking up really early.
Right.
So it's nice if they do hair and makeup on set, so I don't have to wake up as early. But
it's part of your like billable hours for that day.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, that's included with the flat rate, I guess, because usually it's a flat. Well, where I'm at, it's a flat rate. Like there's a whole nother level that I haven't tapped into where it's like, you could make a lot more and bill that extra time.
Yeah.
So, but
let's get back to that. But tell me more about your day.
So back to the day. I get there, hair and makeup's done. I'm looking at the script, getting to know everybody. I really like to just like say hello to everyone, get to know who's doing what. It's hard though, depending on the vibe of the set, because there's definitely tension, especially if things are running late with setup. So I'm like,
imagine.
Hi, I'm Kelly. And they're like, okay.
That's all you get from them.
Okay. That's fine. But yeah, connecting with the other actors, and yeah, I can just tell I'm meant to be there because I just get lit up and I'm just like, yeah, this is what I want to do. I'm excited. I'm having fun. And yeah, I just get in front of the camera and do what I'm supposed to do. And the thing is, I think I know what I'm going to do because I'm like, okay, this is what was in the audition. This is what they liked. And they're like, actually, change everything.
Not only change the script the night before, but also don't do that.
Actually, don't do that. And that is hard. That's really hard because of I'll get in my head and be like, oh no, am I not good enough? Am I not doing what they wanted? And it's just trying to be flexible on set is definitely needed. Like ready to improvise, ready to take notes from the director, because there have been definitely days where someone's asked me to do something and I'm like, I feel like I'm doing it, but apparently not, because you keep asking me to do it differently.
Is there like, how do you disconnect in that way from your performance and your human self?
Yeah, I'm like, okay, I am the product now. So suddenly I'm like, okay, and I need to deliver the product, which is the acting. But then I start feeling like the pressure, like I'll start getting a little anxious, and so disconnecting from that or recognizing it. So instead of, completely disassociating from it, it's like being aware that I'm feeling it and allowing it at the same time as trying to deliver. It's hard not bringing are we allowed to cuss?
Sure, go for it.
It's hard not bringing your shit on set.
Yeah.
And I know people say like,
you're saying like baggage?
Yeah, your baggage. It's very hard. And they're like, don't bring it to work because, acting is your work. But, I think being human is hard, and you can't not, like, if it's really on you, like there was a set and I feel this still, I get like the cringe, and I'm trying to have compassion for myself. But I had like a week-long panic attack happening, like just a lot of stuff was going on in my life, and I had a big shoot. Like it was very well paying, like I was the lead. This could have been like a big deal for me, and I wasn't sleeping. Like I was not connecting to the role, and I was having a very hard time separating baggage from work that day. And I delivered, and it was okay, but I'm also my worst critic. And I was like, it could have been so much.
This episode is sponsored by the Silo Discord. So you made it to an event, you met some friends, you got some amazing images out of it, but now you have to wait until the next one to hang out with some of your favorite people. It's not the case. Join the Discord. This is a great way to get connected with all of your friends. My favorite part has to be sitting in the voice channels while I'm editing, having people join in, ask what I'm working on, asking how their day's going, or just talking about some of the struggles that we're facing. Really just builds a deeper bond with a lot of these community members. With that comes different channels to talk about gear, poetry, memes, food, anything in between. Image critique, where we can come together and give positive feedback on images, making all of our skills sharper. So if you're not already a part, click the link in the description and join the Discord. It's an amazing spot to be.
When that happens, when I can't separate my baggage from my work, I feel like an imposter. Like, I must not be a professional, because a professional would be able to separate this. And that's when that whole question of like, am I good enough? Or
that's a scary question, because that just
is?
eats up, and you can go down a rabbit hole real quick.
Yeah. And I'm like,
especially when everyone's critiquing every little second of what you're doing too, probably.
and I'm like, dude, they're going to submit this to festivals, and the festivals are going to be like, no, we're not taking this. Granted, like, this film made it to a lot of festivals.
Come on.
And I look at it knowing how I was feeling, and I'm like, I'm not going to say it, but I was thinking trash. So I said it. And and I'm like, ooh, that doesn't feel good. Because I'm calling myself that. And I'm like, looking back, like, I had very little self-compassion. It was very much like, you can do better. What was that? Because I guess I let the pressure of how competitive the industry can be get to me. Whereas, like, when I'm just myself and I have compassion for myself, it's easier, and it happens naturally.
Yeah.
But I couldn't ignore where I was I couldn't separate it. So I think there is a way you can do that. Or even using the energy to make a path into the character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Figure out, like, where does my hurt actually have an underlying tone in this character's performance or something?
Yes. And that's what I've done training. And my coach was like, okay, how are you feeling? How do you want to feel? How is this character feeling? How can you relate how you're feeling with the character without, burying it or pretending it's not there, the
Right.
feeling you're having. So, I mean, yeah, the performance probably wasn't as bad as I'm making it out to be. But in my mind, I was like, I could have done better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What role does reputation have in that industry? You talk about, like, your self-worth a lot, but, like, if you did screw up or let your emotions get the best of you, or, your situation get the best of you, that like on that set, like, how much grace is there? So you were a lead too. So
yeah.
like, would you not get called back for that production company?
I get stuck in my head about that
Yeah.
every time I think, and I'm very critical. So even the smallest things, because it's happened on commercial sets, it's happened on a lot of sets where I'm like, I could have done that differently. I wonder if they hate me now. I get deep. They hate me. And that's not true.
I was going to say, I guarantee just knowing you that's not any vibe that you would give off at all.
Reputation, but it's like, it's hard to know, like, are they going to have grace for this? Because the thing is, like, they do. And they show that, but it's like, it's that voice in your head that says that they don't. Because another example, I was on a set with Cowboy Bear Ninja. They're a production company. They've done, like, stuff in New York. And I know, I love the name.
Yeah.
And Harrisburg. So this was in Harrisburg. It was for a game, like a little mobile app game. So, but the script was very intricate with, like, the character names and the levels and the weapons, and it's stuff that naturally would not come out of my mouth.
Yeah.
So, and I was having an off day, and I could not get the line out. And I was so embarrassed. Like, it was a monologue about, like, points and stuff. And I'm like, wow. I was just mortified that I couldn't get it out. And I had no grace for myself. And because we worked it out, like, we were able to edit it a certain way. I had my lines. I could say some of them, edit it to a certain, and it worked out. Like, we got the line out.
Yeah.
And the commercial turned out great. And then the next day, I'm on the set for the same thing, and the other guy's having the same problem, like the other actor. But he's so chill about it. And everyone's like, it's cool. Just do this. And I'm like, damn, like, why couldn't I went home and sobbed after because of how hard I was on myself when they were just so cool. And they told my agent after, they were like, we loved working with Kelly. She was great. And I'm just like, wow. Like, so really having grace for yourself is the most important. Reputation, I think, is important. Like, you don't want to burn bridges.
Yeah.
But I think, having a few flubs on set, it's going to happen. And everyone has grace. Like, a few lines here and there.
I was going to say, I feel like you have the hardest job on set, actually, like remembering your lines kind of deal. It's like all these other guys are rolling on cameras, making sure they get the shots. They don't care that you messed up. They're just going to keep rolling and do it again or whatever, It helps when I see other actors like flubbing too and just being chill about it. Yeah.
Because I'm like, oh, I can have that grace for myself.
You're all human.
Yeah, we're all human. What? I forgot. So, but reputation, when I think of reputation, it's important. Like, you don't want to burn bridges and get nasty. Like, but you also don't want to let people cross your boundaries. And I've experienced that too, where I'm like, okay, I don't think this guy, I spoke up for myself in this situation. I don't think he's going to ever want to work with me again now, but you
probably wouldn't want to work with that guy if he pushed your buttons or anything.
Yeah. So maybe some places some things just aren't meant for you, and you're not meant to be on certain things. But I'll get in my head like, oh, maybe I should have people pleased. Maybe I should have fawned there.
Yeah. Where do you draw boundaries on like sets? Like what, we don't have to get into it, but like what is a boundary that has been crossed before that like, because photographers and like set production people like probably have their own things that they're going through. Like, I don't know. What does that look like for you that production people should know that you're talking to?
The one that I keep running into, or not keep running into, the ones that I have run into, and one recently was like when they hire you, they're not clear about their expectations, and or they ask you for more after you've signed on. So
that's example, like deliverable creep.
Yeah. And I was like, wait, what? So that's like recently I was casted on a Tubi movie. And I was so excited. I'm like, oh, I'm going to be on Tubi. And just a small role, simple. So the pay was low, but they said, you'll only be there for an hour. It's only an hour away. They said that it's only an hour away. It's in Baltimore. So keep that in mind. And they had to pay for 1 hour. Okay, that's it. I'm like, all right. So I sign. Then they're like, okay, so rehearsals are every week. Granted, I have 2 lines in this movie. Okay, we're gonna have a in-person rehearsal and virtual rehearsal twice a week, every week. I'm like, well, what? Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, I can hop on this one Zoom one. We can run through my lines real quick. Like, I'm not against rehearsals, but you're supposed to tell me before that. And I sign on. And so I'm like, okay. And then I find out that the set, they need me for over 2 hours. And the location is not in Baltimore. It is not. It is actually way south Maryland, about 2 hours.
Wow.
So I had a choice.
Yeah.
I'm like, I want to be on TV, but this is crossing my boundaries. And it's really hard because I am a people pleaser. And I also have serious FOMO. Like, I don't want to miss any opportunity.
Right.
But I had to honor myself here, and I just had a bad feeling. And I was like, you know what? This just keeps, I have to say no. And I did. And I still have the FOMO, but I also think like that just wasn't.
Yeah. What does it look like to like cancel your contract or sign?
Conflict is hard for me.
Yeah.
Because it's hard for me to address my needs. I get like a little shaky, a little adrenaline rush. And I left a voicemail. I was very kind. I was like, hey, I understand things change, but I agreed to this. And now I'm being presented with something completely different. So I have to say, I'm not doing this anymore. And I sent the email. They never said anything to me.
They're just like,
Yep. Didn't respond. That was it. And
is that almost better, or is that worse that you didn't get like full
I feel
closure?
Like I didn't get I feel like I would have liked Kelly, we understand, like, we're sorry this wasn't clear, but we understand. Like, I I don't know, something like that. Because I wish them well. I was like,
Yeah.
it's a great script. Loved meeting you guys. But yeah, so it felt a little icky, and I feel bad, but I know that it was just the move that I had to make. So, I guess different contracts, like this one wasn't like fully binding. It was like an NDA, or is it NDA? Yeah, non-disclosure. So I'm not going to talk about like what the film is, like what the details are, but yeah, I'm not getting penalized or anything for it. It was like a simple little film we were making.
What would it look like if it was like a tighter contract?
If it was a tighter contract,
do you get like, is it a fine? I don't even know what you would.
It would. I don't know if I've ever been in that tight of a contract where I couldn't completely back out without being fined. I think the only thing that they could do, they could get the court involved, is if I had disclosed anything.
Gotcha.
After. But that's all I've been involved with so far. I'm sure there's like more binding contracts out there. Like if I was in like a big Hollywood film. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm just like thinking about like what the collateral is to, to backing out. Like, I don't know. I just don't know what that would look like unless you had to invest money into it, which would be weird in the first place.
Yeah.
Like, you're not getting your money back or something.
Yeah, there is that kind of it. Like you do invest some things, like some sets, they want you to do your own hair and makeup. They want you to bring their own wardrobe, and they don't pay for that. And some sets have wardrobe. So it really depends. Like I used to, when I first started, because I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. I'm gonna make sure I have so many like wardrobe items. But then I'm like, they're not paying me for that though. So now I'm like, okay, what I have is what I have. If you'd like to bring extra, like if you want me to see me in this shirt, then you guys can buy it.
Sure, fair enough. What would you say to creatives that like don't have those boundaries that you've grown over the years?
I would say, you like. They want the people, okay, so the people that are casting you, they want you to be it. Like they want you to be, like they want to hire you. So go in with that mindset, like they want to hire me. Like I'm great. Like this is like.
You are the one picked
like,
out of the.
Yeah, they asked you to audition. Like when you're getting to that audition point. But can you state the question again? I got off.
Talk to the creatives that don't have the boundaries in place that you do.
Yeah.
How do you get them to realize self-worth in that way, or just in general?
Yeah.
What that looks like to set boundaries.
It's very exciting at first. And you do want to get your resume together. So taking the lower paying jobs or the ones that are just even, freebies just to get the credit, that makes sense. Like in the beginning, but don't, like once you've had a few credits, like don't sell yourself short. Yeah, like, I don't know. I think thinking about like the time you're investing, the gas you're going to invest, like think about those things as, that's something you want to be paid for, or like compensated for. And think about what your price is too, like what you're putting into it, what you'd like to get out of it. If it's just a credit and that's worth it, then go for it. But if you're like for me now, I've decided to make this, like I'm trying to pay my bill. I would love to go full time with it. Right now I'm part-time. So the pay does matter for me.
Yeah.
And which ones I say yes to, which ones I say no to. Like make sure you're measuring what you're missing if you say yes.
Opportunity cost.
Yeah, yes. That's exactly.
What does your portfolio look like now? Because you talk about like your yoga and all that stuff, because you have your part-time at the church, you're doing this like part-time, you have yoga, you've got other things going on. How does that all play into the portfolio of like money that you're making?
So I really would love to just do acting full-time, but I'm like, you know what? I'm in this space where I just want to, make income doing things that I love. So in the meantime, since some months are really lucrative with acting and some months aren't, let's have some other things I'm making income with. So yoga, I love yoga so much. And I decided from a gig, I got paid for this gig and I was like, I'm going to use this money to do teacher training. And you can do teacher training and not be a teacher after. People choose to do that. But I was like, you know what? I just had this dream. I'm like, I'm going to act and do yoga and that's it. I'm going to like lead retreats. It's going to be great.
That's cool.
And that's still the dream. But it is, you don't get paid a whole lot doing yoga unless you're hustling.
Sure.
And like you're like setting up classes everywhere. And it takes a lot of time to invest where you're not getting paid. And the same with acting, like the audition process, the reaching out, connecting, networking. You don't get paid for that, but that's the work. And so for yoga, you're like setting up sequences. You're, connecting with people that we want to be your students. And it's awesome. It worked out for me. Right after I went on this yoga retreat, I connected with a studio that had a job opening, and I interviewed and they gave me the job. So I'm teaching 2 classes a week now, but you only get paid when you teach. You don't get paid if you miss a class or if, you're on vacation.
Right.
But it's like, it pays like a bill for the month, you know? So that like,
that's good enough, right?
Yeah, that's good enough for now. And I'm getting stuff on my resume that I work for a studio. And now I'm doing a workshop with connecting to other people in the industry. I'm connected with a sound healer, and we're going to start doing workshops and retreats on our own. And so once you start doing stuff on your own, that's where you make a little bit more. But again, it's like coming up with the sequences, spending the time, setting up in the studio, and it takes up a lot of bandwidth.
Yeah. Well, I forget. Do you get paid by the studio just to be there no matter who shows up, or do you get paid portions of people who show up?
So depending on the studio, this studio I'm working for, you get paid for just the class. So, but it's a flat rate. So no matter who shows up, you get the flat rate.
As long as you show up too.
Yes. Then you get the flat rate for an hour class.
Yeah.
There are studios that will give you a percentage, but if no one shows up, you don't get paid.
Yeah.
Or if one person shows up, you just get $5.
That's why it helps to maybe have a following or something, or dedicated people that would follow you wherever you are.
Yeah. And I'm fortunate that I got this job that pays by the hour, no matter who shows up, because I'm still working on a following. So I have a lot of yogi friends who are teachers, but they're all teaching their own classes.
So they're not showing up to yours.
Yeah.
It's just like you have a network of same people.
And I have a few people, like I've had people come out to support the first class, but there's going to be, like really building a following will take some time, and that takes marketing too.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, so I gotta post about acting, but I also gotta post about yoga, and and so I'm marketing myself in different ways, and it just takes up a lot of energy.
Yeah.
Some days.
How do you get people to show up to your yoga class?
I usually I'll do a post. I'll do direct text to people being like, hey, I'm doing this class. It's nice because the studio offers, like, if it's your first time at the studio, it's free. So come check it out, see if you like it.
Right.
And word of mouth. So I do have a couple students now that come every class.
That's good.
And they'll tell people about it. So I've seen new people coming in through that as well.
Yeah. Do you feel like those are sticky people that are going to stay with you, and the word of mouth, spreading the word through those people are going to start growing?
Yes. I'm hoping that's what happens. I feel like that'll happen, but I do know that there's a next level that I have to get to that I'm not like putting the time in just yet to do, like that next level of marketing and really like, creating Facebook events and sending invites to everyone.
Sure. You do that enough in your day-to-day life at church.
Since I do social media for the church, I'm like, I need to stop staring at my phone now. Thank you. But that's what it takes to get that following. And I know that I need to take the time to do it. It's just like finding that motivation.
Do you feel like you spread yourself too thin a little bit?
Yes. That's where I'm like, oh God. Because I'm like, okay, to be really successful, I'm just like tapping into the surface here. And I'm new with the yoga teaching, but to be really successful with that, I have to step it up to a new level. And I feel like I'm spread too thin because I'm like auditioning. I'm trying to keep up with the church stuff, with website and social media.
Pursuing all these creative things, but like is there going to be a point where you have to scale back from one of them, or is it just like
Yes.
your involvement, all of them comes together to make something?
I might have to scale. It's so hard because FOMO. And I'm like, all these things light me up. And I'm like, and I found a way to make income off of all of them. You know, you run out of time in the day.
Yeah.
And one of them's going to suffer.
Which one has been suffering the
Maybe
most?
actually acting.
Whoa.
Yeah. And I'm like,
I feel like that's the one that like
that's the one
you
that
want to
should
do
not
the
be.
most.
Yeah. So this is a real like aha moment. Because I wanted to do all the things. And now that I am, I'm seeing the acting suffering because I'm like, I don't feel like submitting that audition. Or maybe I don't feel like looking at my reel. I haven't touched that reel. I haven't updated that reel in a year.
Yeah.
And it's still a good reel. So a reel is just, clips of my past work. It's like a portfolio and it's still good, but I've done a lot of great work since then. And I'm just not, I'm not taking the time to edit. I'm not taking the time to update my resume. I'm not taking the time to.
You could be like landing higher paying or more reputable gigs if you had all of your current like expert level acting in there.
If I had like really taken the time, but it's like, I don't have the energy. And I'm like, why don't I have the energy? Oh, because I'm burnt out.
Oh, the word has been dropped.
Burnout. I feel it so hard so I'm like, what do I drop? And it's ideally, and I love the church, and it's been so like you have to have, it's so nice that I had this flexible security part-time with the church. Like that's amazing. I would not be able to. That's what led to this acting career, like to flourish. So I can't let that go. But ideally, I would just be doing the acting and yoga and the band.
Start like outgrowing what you could make at the church.
Yes.
Only being there part-time with acting gigs that start filling up the time that you would have spent at the church.
Yeah. But then it's like, I want to be realistic for people that are listening. Like there are bills to pay. I am on my own now. I'm paying for an apartment by myself. And rent is ridiculous.
Say that again.
So I have to be realistic. I can be like, oh yeah, it's so easy being an actor. Just go for it. And I do think that it's a myth that you can't make a career off of this.
I'm so glad you circled back around to that. Yeah.
Like I'm so happy that I dropped that myth and I'm like, you know what? I can do what I want. And then I'm like, ooh, surprise myself. I made money off a commercial. That's proof. When you made money off this, you're a professional. Look at that.
It's fair.
Whoa. So yeah, it's a myth that you can't, but it also is like, you have to be real about paying bills, I guess, too.
and working for yourself.
Yeah.
Like even if you were to drop the part-time gig that's reliable, same hours every week kind of deal, it's like, okay, now I got to figure out how I can pay for like health insurance each month.
Health insurance. I'm terrified.
And all this stuff that like was just kind of taken care of. But now you actually have to probably put in a few hours a month or a year focusing on that was taken care of for you.
Yeah.
So there is the tension of knowing when to actually jump ship on stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So
I feel like I jumped ship at the right time for the part-time. So I was full-time and I saw that, oh, hey, I could cut back my hours and still make enough with part-time acting, and it worked. And I think it's just like a slow dial. It's dialing back and then seeing how that works for a little bit. So don't jump off the cliff right away. I listened to a podcast that says you should have an oh shit fund as well.
Oh yeah.
Just in case.
Like 3 to 6 months of your income.
Like and dial it back slowly.
I think you also surprise yourself. Like what you just said. You're like, if I dial it back a little bit, maybe like if I dial it back 10%, I might actually see 15% in the other direction start to come through. And then like, oh, I can keep going.
Yes, that's exactly what happened. When I dialed back, I started making more acting.
Yeah.
It's because I was like, I had the energy and time.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, oh. So I am very tempted sometimes to just be like, what if I just go 100 and see how, like, because then, I'll definitely have the motivation then to be like,
if not, you got a fire under your butt
I
trying
know,
to figure it
right?
out.
Sometimes the fire is, that's what you need.
Yeah.
So I've
But you
been,
can only survive on that for a little bit of time before it's like, okay, now I'm burnt out from the fire that's burning me.
Yes.
Yeah.
So having a little cushion somewhere, like a little bit of security, but again, with something that isn't like draining your soul. Like the community I have at church is phenomenal, and the flexibility there.
It's because you have an office with me, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
The
When I
best
play lo-fi
coworker.
music.
Yes, the best coworker ever, Austin. And yeah, the like management has been great. Like my bosses, I've been so fortunate for them to just be like, yeah, go for it. I sounded Canadian just now. Go for it.
Yeah, man.
Is that how it is? Go for it.
How many hours do you spend each week doing all of your like 4 or 5 passions?
Oh, wow. So I'm auditioning every sorry, I'm auditioning every day. So that's a lot.
Wow.
I'm submitting at least one.
Jeez.
Well, if you look at it across the board, because some days I won't, but then some days I'll have 5 auditions.
Sure.
So when you look at it across the board, there's like an audition happening every day, virtually, like submitting. So there's that. Yoga, I have 2 to 3 classes a week, but then there's, the hour of prepping for each of those classes. So
Right.
you add that into it, and cleanup. And the social media for the church, I'm doing 25 hours a week.
So that adds up maybe full-time-ish, basically?
Oh, yeah.
Did you go
altogether.
over that, you think?
I would go over that for acting, depending on the month, definitely.
Sure.
When
you actually have like a full day shoot kind of deal.
Oh,
that
yeah,
pushes
because then
back and flexing hours.
Oh, yeah. And then I'm flexing hours. So I usually won't use my PTO for an acting gig unless I have to. So I'm all flexing. So then I'm definitely overtime, like really feeling the burnout where it's like all day, every day working.
Kelly, plug some of his stuff that you're up to.
All right. So I plugged the true crime, Watch Born Evil on HBO Max. I think it's number 2 on top series.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's sick.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I reenact Detective Desiree Smith in episode 4 and 5, but it's like it's pretty dark. So disclaimer, it's about a serial killer, but really cool. I teach yoga at Your Yoga in West York. It's right across the street from West York High School. Great studio. I teach Monday nights and Wednesday nights. And Travelers Band, we have a gig coming up October 5th. It's going to be at the Alba Twitch Festival in Columbia, downtown.
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
The festival's 11 to 4. We'll be playing for like an hour. I'm not sure what the set time is yet, but TBD. We'll be there. So just hang out for the day.
Well, Kelly, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate you having a good conversation on the pod. And we're going to hear from you soon, I'm sure.
Yes. Thanks for having me.